Hello, my name is Morgan, and for those of you who do not know me, I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains and I actually still live here to this day, and I have had some weird stuff happen to me. I feel like every time summer comes around, I kind of rehash some of my biggest experiences and stories, and that is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And I don't know if I've ever shared this one, actually, but it happened whenever I was probably in middle school. So I remember one night I had a friend over and we wanted to camp. And our version of camping was taking my dad's pickup truck to the middle of a field and taking as many blankets and pillows and snacks and my laptop. What else did we I don't know, but we were sleeping in the back of the truck. I think we took an air mattress too. So we get up there, everything is fine. We eat dinner up there. My mom makes it at the house and we take it to go. We're literally fine. Until the sun goes down, because of course. We thought of everything except for how incredibly dark it was going to be in that field. I don't even think we took a flashlight. All we had was my laptop and a scary movie on it. So anyways, something in the air just shifts. Like, you know, when you suddenly know something's not okay, that's kind of what it felt like. And we both noticed it because without even saying anything, I remember we looked at each other like, That is when something starts circling the truck. And it's doing it quickly. And not only that, it starts doing that on top of kind of pushing at the truck. And I remember at one point the truck moved so hard, I was like, it's gonna fall over. It's going to fall over. The truck is gonna fall over. And keep in mind, we're in the back of the truck. Like, unless I want to go toe to toe with whatever's circling the truck, I cannot get down to get into the cab to get us out because the back window of the truck's not open. So we literally sit there for however many minutes until this thing stops circling. And then we're too scared to like get down or do anything. And all I've been able to tell at this point is it's something on all fours, and then I've also seen it on all twos because I could see the shadow of it moving at some points. So sometimes it's standing up, sometimes it's standing down. Eventually I am able to get out and get into the truck. I think I opened up that back window so she could crawl through and she didn't have to get down. And we go home and we go into my bedroom and we sleep there. I remember telling my parents about it the next day and they were like, well, we told you not to camp up there. And we had like called them to tell them that something was wrong, but it was really late at night. I think it was like 1 or 2 in the morning when this happened. They were asleep. So yeah, that happened. Still have like no solid confirmation on what that was, but didn't like it.
Welcome back to Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta. Let's get into today's story. Originally, I'm from West Virginia. I moved around between the Appalachian and the Midwest some as a kid. Between the ages of 10 to 13, I lived in rural Kentucky in the foothills of one of the oldest mountain ranges on the planet. I lived with my dad and my grams. We lived in the middle of the neighborhood with nothing but family on both sides. When I moved in, my grams had some rules I had to follow. At the time, I chalked them up to hillbilly stranger danger. There were things like don't mess around with the wild animals, don't go out into the woods alone. Then they got a little weird. Don't whistle. If you hear your name, don't answer and don't go to it. If you see someone in the woods you might know, no you didn't, and just come home. This experience happened in August when I was 11. My dad and I had a mowed path through the tall grass and berry bushes to the left of the double wide we lived in. We camped out there a lot because it was close enough that we could check on grams. Now, when you're in the woods, things are louder than you think. You have animal life, bugs chattering, wind through the trees and grass. There was a stream that ran along the road you could easily hear. That night we added the campfire to that list. My dad decided to go back up to the house about a quarter of a mile to get more beer and to check on grams. Before he left, he told me not to mess with the fire. After a few minutes of watching the fire, things started to get quiet. Like, real quiet. The wind had all but stopped, bug and animal sounds were all gone, and the stream sounded like it was miles away. I was getting uncomfortable even though I've been left at the campground before like this. Then I started to smell and taste it. It was in the back of my throat out of nowhere. This awful metal tang. After a few more moments of dread, my dad came back. He was mad right away, said he could smell burning metal coming up the trail. He accused me of tossing beer cans in the fire. I told him I didn't and even pointed to the fire to prove it. He said there was a storm coming in and we needed to get home, and he let it go. We left the tent and started our way back. Now, the very cool but very weird thing about lightning in woods this dense is when the lightning hits, it lights up everything like the middle of the day. After the first set of trees, it's pitch black. There are no streetlights, and unless you have lights on your property, it's completely black. So it's pitch black, lightly raining, and other than the dim lights from the house windows, there's nothing. I'm eating watermelon, as one does in August in the mountains, when the first clap of lightning hits. Everything is as bright as it can be. After the second passes, it's black as pitch again. Next clap of lightning comes, and that's when I kind of see it. On the porch, past the yard, over the stream, past the road, I could see the silhouette of it. Then it goes dark. This is also when I can't start to taste that same awful burning metal. I'm not really sure what I saw, so I just kind of stay still. It's a few moments before the lightning hits again. The figure is closer now, standing side by side to the trees. Then it's back again. I'm standing now, not sure what to do. It's been 20 years, to this day, and I've tried, but could never fully describe what I saw. This thing's head wasn't proportioned to its body. The arms were too long, and the torso didn't fit right. It just didn't look correct. Once the lightning hit again, the thing is standing in the middle of the road. Not wanting to see this thing get any closer, I go inside. My grandma's doing dishes and asks why I'm inside. I tell her I think I saw something. She almost immediately gets my dad on his feet, telling him to shut and lock all the windows and doors. The next day we discover the tent door is torn off. It didn't look like an animal. Things weren't cut or shredded, but looked like someone took and pulled it apart. My uncle, who lived a mile or so up, had all 8 chickens killed. Heads gone, no blood. The next few weeks, all the kids had to wait for the bus with an adult. My dad had to be late for work almost 3 weeks. Anytime I tried to talk about it, I just had the subject change. I just figured I was a kid and it wasn't important or real. It wasn't until years later I finally understood. I was in my early 20s and some cousins were in town for Halloween. As I was telling this story, my aunt gets irate with me, saying, "Don't you tell them that. Don't put that evil on them." After, I couldn't help but think back on all the times I tried to talk about it and how I was shunned. Once I started dipping my toes in Reddit, I realized there was a name for this thing, the same name my auntie had called it that day at the party and other people who have seen it, the Goatman. What bothers me the most is how to this day I couldn't describe any features, nor have I ever tasted that awful burning metal taste again. So friends, if you ever find yourself in the foothills of Kentucky, please remember my Grams.
3 days after their uncle died, something came knocking at the family's side door, asking to be let in. And according to the guy that sent this story to me, it sounded exactly like his uncle. Now, this story was sent to me by a follower named Ryan, and he said that this happened when he was 16 years old living with his parents in a rural part of the Appalachian Trail. His Uncle Danny had just passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack, and the entire family took it really, really hard because Uncle Danny was practically like a second father to him, and, he lived there. He was always there for every holiday, birthday, random late night visits and hangouts, and there was one thing that everybody in the family knew, and that was that Uncle Danny never used the front door, ever. He actually like refused to use it, and he used to drive Ryan's mom crazy. Now, he always came through this side entrance near the driveway and would do this specific 3-knock pattern before walking in. And it would be like 3 slow knocks, a pause, and then followed by 2 quick ones. And Ryan said 3 nights after the funeral, the house felt really heavy and everybody was taking it really hard and they were really emotionally drained. So his parents and his older sister and him stayed up late watching, an old movie in the living room to really just distract themselves from everything going on, right? And it was sometime around midnight when they heard the knock, 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 the pause, and then the 2 quick knocks. Same exact pattern that the Uncle Danny used to do. And Ryan said every person in the room froze instantly because they all recognized what knock that was. And his mother sat up and she was like, "No, get the hell out of here." And at first I thought, maybe it was another relative stopping by unexpectedly to maybe drop something off or, just to stop by. But when Ryan looked out the living room window, the driveway was completely empty. There were no headlights, no cars, no nothing. And then the knocking kept happening again and again. Same exact pattern, but this time it was a little bit slower, he said, the second time around. His dad finally stood up and walked toward the side door, and while everybody followed behind him, they were like, "What the hell is going on? It's midnight. No one should be here." And Ryan said the hallway, when they came around the corner from the living room into the hallway, he said it felt like an ice chamber. It was so cold for no reason. And when his father got to the door, he didn't open it, of course. He just, quietly asked, "Who is it?" And from the other side came Uncle Danny's voice. And he was very soft and very calm at first, and he was just like, "Hey, come on, man, let me in." And Ryan said it sounded exactly like his uncle. Same deep voice, same thick southern accent, and even this little cough that his uncle used to do between sentences. He was a very heavy smoker, so he had this specific cough. And Ryan's mother immediately started crying because she's like, something's wrong. What the hell is going on? Obviously, Uncle Danny hasn't even been buried for, 2 days. And Ryan said the voice sounded almost rehearsed, like someone was trying very hard to sound human and sound like his uncle, but wasn't really sure or hasn't really figured it out yet. And his father backed away from the door and he was like, Danny? And then whatever this was outside laughed quietly. And it wasn't really a normal laugh. Ryan described it as someone copying what laughter would sound like without understanding emotion, if that makes any sense. And then whatever this was spoke again, and he was like, hey, why won't you let me in? And at this point, everyone in the house was shook. They were panicking, and Ryan's sister kept saying, like, don't open the door, don't open the door. And she started crying. And then came the creep. One of the freakiest parts was that whatever this was outside started to get really impatient. And the voice changed slightly. Still sounded like Uncle Danny, but it was much deeper and a little bit more like hoarse and strained now. And it kept saying, please, 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 doing the knock, knock, and, let me in, man, let me in. And Ryan said that the doorknob started to rattle, and it was rattling hard enough that it was actually shaking the door. And his father went and grabbed the gun, and before he can even, chamber around, everything stopped. There were no more footsteps, no knocking, no nothing. Ryan finally looked out the small side of the window beside the door that was right above the kitchen sink, and standing near the driveway, partially hidden in the darkness, was this very tall figure facing the home. And it wasn't moving. It was definitely taller than his uncle was, and the stature was very, very thin and different from his uncle. And he said its arms almost looked like unnaturally long. His uncle was a little shorter and stockier. And then it walked backward into the darkness without ever turning around, or at least that's what it looked like. His family ended up calling the police in case it was someone playing a dark prank or whatever, but they searched the property, and that night, they found no footprints despite heavy mud from earlier rain. And Ryan told me that his family still refuses to talk about what happened that night, but he absolutely swears on everything that whatever was outside that door knew his uncle's voice. So I don't know. What do you think that they heard that night? Was it a mimic? Was it something pretending to be the dead? Was it something far worse? Or was it just someone messing around? What do you guys think? Let me know.
What would you do if you were having nightmares of a figure in your closet with red glowing eyes and one day you saw it in real life? Warning, if you're watching this at nighttime, you might want to save this and watch it in the morning. When I was 15, my parents moved my brother and I from Massachusetts to Virginia for my dad's new job. I had a bad feeling about the house as soon as I walked in, but I chalked it up to me just being upset about the move. I was a freshman in high school, and I had to leave all my friends that I've had since elementary school behind and start a new school where I didn't know anyone. The first night, I woke up in the middle of the night and went to the bathroom. When I was done, I turned the light off and started walking back towards my room. As I'm walking, I hear a click and look behind me, and the bathroom light was back on. I went back and looked in the bathroom, and no one was in there. I turned the light back off and went back to my room. I told myself I must have thought I turned it off and didn't. The next day, I unpacked my room and got everything situated. For the first few weeks, nothing else happened. Until one night, I had a dream I was sleeping in my bed and woke up to my closet door opening by itself. I looked over and saw 2 red orbs glowing in the closet. I woke up and everything in my room looked normal. I shook it off as a bad dream. I had been stressed since the move, so I told myself it must be that. But the next night, I woke up around midnight to my closet door wide open. I stared at the door for a few minutes before getting the courage to turn on the lamp next to my bed and shut the door. The next morning at breakfast, I told my mom and dad about it, and they told me I must have left it open and forgot. They said the stress of the move must really be getting to me, and I figured they were right. It was all just in my head. A week went by and nothing happened. School had been going okay. I was still struggling to make friends, but it could have been worse. I stayed to myself a lot and focused on my work.
Then I had another dream. Again, I was in my bed and watched my closet door open by itself, and the red glowing orbs appeared again. This time, they came out of the closet attached to the 6-foot-tall shadow figure. I was frozen in my dream as I watched this thing start moving towards my bed. As soon as it reached the foot of my bed, I woke up. As soon as I did, I looked straight at the closet. The door was wide open as it had been in my dream. I knew at this point I couldn't blame it on the stress anymore. I made sure every night that my closet door was shut before I got into bed. Again in the morning, I told my parents about what happened, and like last time, they brushed it off. My brother looked at me and told me I was just trying to get attention. My parents told him to knock it off, and we all ate the rest of our breakfast in silence. Dex, my brother, was 2 years older than me, and we were never very close growing up. He did his thing, and I did mine, and that was pretty much that. These nightmares continued on and off for a few months, but I didn't bother saying anything because I knew no one would believe me. One night after school, it was just myself at home. My mom was at work, and my dad had to stay late at the office. Dex, of course, was out with his friends like always. I was in my room, sitting on my bed, doing homework, when all of a sudden the lights went out. I sat there for a minute, waiting to see if they would turn back on. The last thing I wanted to do was go to the basement and turn the breaker box back on. As I was about to get up to go down to the basement, my closet door opened. I froze. I couldn't move a muscle. As badly as I wanted to bolt out of there, I couldn't. Then, there they were, the 2 red glowing orbs. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it. The figure stepped out of the closet. I knew at that moment this definitely was not a dream. "Claire," I heard my dad say from somewhere in the house. "Why are all the lights off?" I couldn't respond. The figure started moving towards my bed. Then there was a knock at my door. "Claire, honey, are you in there?" Then I heard him try to open the door, but it wouldn't open. I didn't have a lock on my door. "Claire," he said, growing concerned. The figure reached the end of my bed. I wanted to scream, but it was like my body was taken over and I couldn't do anything at all. My dad slammed into the door to get it open, but no luck. The figure then climbed onto the bed, its piercing red eyes locked on mine. I thought this was it. I'm going to die. Finally, my dad got the door open. "Claire," he shouted. The figure then turned its head towards my dad, and my dad froze. And just like that, it was gone, just vanished. My dad finally believed what I had been saying for months. After that, we moved out and never looked back. I don't know what that thing was, and I don't want to. I've never had another paranormal experience again after that. After I read this story, I couldn't stop thinking about what would have happened to Claire if her dad didn't walk through the door. But let this be a message to parents that if your child is telling you that something is going on, it probably is. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this story. And of course, if you have a story you would like me to share, please feel free to DM me.
We get thousands of emails from listeners telling us their ghost stories, and so I thought I would read one to you. This is about a creepy kid being lured out into the woods by some unknown spirit. And this comes from our listener, Stephanie. Stephanie says, "A little bit of background. We used to live in a house that was right next to a graveyard. We normally didn't have much activity from the spirits. They would hide things in the house, like one time my car keys went missing for a few days, and then I came home to find them sitting on the edge of my bed. Like, the spirits were just done messing with me, so they returned them. Then, my oldest daughter went to an old abandoned haunted hospital in Lincoln County, Tennessee to explore with her friends one night. And we are pretty sure she brought something or someone home with her. Because soon after that, the friendly things the spirits next door were doing turned into some scary shit. One day, my oldest was taking a nap in my bed and woke up because she felt pressure like someone was sitting at the end of the bed. She thought it was me coming home in the middle of the night, so she opened her eyes and looked only to see a small little girl. This girl was sitting there, watching her. My daughter said she had dark brown hair and was wearing a white hospital gown. My daughter said she freaked out and kicked at her because that was her first instinct. And the little girl's eyes turned red. So my daughter pulled the covers over her head and yelled, "Go away." She said she stayed under the covers for a while, and when she came out, the little girl was gone. We continued to see things move in the house. Something would shoot from one side of the dark room to the other. My youngest would hear her name being called randomly, and she would come into my room and ask what I needed. I would look at her funny, and she would say, "Didn't you just say my name?" I would tell her, "No." Then, one night at 3 a.m., I heard someone trying to open the front door. I shot straight up out of bed and realized my youngest was trying to go outside. I yelled her name and stopped her, and when I got to her, I said, "It's 3 a.m., what are you doing outside?" She looked me dead in the face and said, "You told me to. I heard you from your room say, 'Beverly, take the dog outside to go potty.'" That was not me. I told her to go inside and go back to bed, and it was not long after that I started looking into how to sage and protect your house with crystals, and now my house is locked down. And that's for my listener, Stephanie. And this is Leia, who loves ghost stories too. If you have ghost stories, please email them to us at twogirlsoneghostpodcast@gmail.com, and maybe we'll read it in an upcoming episode or here.
An icy car crash, left stranded on the side of the road, and a UFO sighting. If you like true Appalachian scary stories, then this is the account for you. I live in eastern Kentucky, and I have a lot of true scary stories that I would like to share with you. But here's the thing, this is a new account, so if you don't care, could you give me a follow? Also, this is a series, and this is part 23. It's 1967. There's a sheet of ice, an inch thick, all across the roads. Snowing, complete whiteout. Imagine this. You still have to go and get milk and groceries for your kids. Everybody's snowed in, and you risk it. My mom at the time lived up on top of a hill, okay, in this small county, and it was pretty steep, and it also has a turn in it, so she knew she was going to be able to go down the hill, but the big risk was trying to get back up the hill. So she was able to go down the hill, and also I should add, this was a back road, so there was no such thing as a snow truck or salt or anything that was happening, okay? My mom gets to the local store, picks up her milk, bread, whatever, and then she's coming back. As she's trying to go up the hill, she gets stuck, and then she's like, okay, so she puts it in reverse, and then she's like, okay, if I just get some momentum, I can get up this hill. So she guns it at the bottom of the hill, and when she does, instead of going up the hill, whenever she hit the curve in the hill, she slid off and went into the embankment. Well, they didn't have cell phones back then. So what do? You go to the closest house that has their porch light on. So she does that, and she calls her husband that's at home and tells him, and then they have a tow truck on the way. Well, while she's sitting on the side of the road by her car, in the middle of the night, I should add, snow pouring down, ice cold, looking at her car in the ditch, she just looks up at the sky because there's nothing else to do. So she's looking up at the sky, and what does she see? A UFO. Well, that was really shocking to her at the time, right? You would imagine, right? She gets her car back to her house, okay? It took a while. Next day, and she hadn't told anybody about this, okay? The very next day, the radio came on. There was a lady on the local station. This is a small county, okay? There was a lady on the local radio station that had called in. Back in these days, you don't just
call in and like report something like this. Like I said, my mom recently passed, well, my mom passed away when I was 23, and if she was still alive today, she'd be 81. So back then, you didn't just call in and do this, okay? Like, people like got put away for being crazy, or even like talking about their emotions back then. So everybody was emotionally constipated back then, because, you know, you don't want to get a lobotomy done to you, you know what I mean? But there was a lady on the radio station that was pleading with everyone in the county, please call, I'm not crazy. I know other people had to have seen it. And then all of a sudden my mom snapped and she remembered everything. She completely forgot about seeing the UFO. Now I know what you're thinking, how could you possibly forget something like that? She has no answer for it. She has no idea. She just remembers getting the car back up to the house, starting her day like normal, you know, going to bed, waking up, starting her day, and then turning on the radio, and then hearing that, and then like snapping back into reality and realizing like, holy crap, I seen a UFO. So what caused her to forget like that? Kind of odd, huh? And I'm sure you're wondering, like, did she call in? No. She didn't report it. Mom would tell her UFO stories to me and everyone in my family. And I feel like it was pretty much all, like, everybody listened, but, like, with a grain of salt, you know? But now, U.S. Pentagon just released trove of UFO files and videos. Over 400 reports over the last 80 years. I wish she was alive to hear that today. Maybe we could look at some of the UFO videos. This was taken in 2013 in the U.S. military. Location unknown, in the Middle East. Look at that. It certainly doesn't look like a cigar. Kind of looks like a biblical angel in a way to me. That's what a lot of people have been saying. This is literally from the Pentagon, guys. Look at how it's moving. That's so unnatural. That's not like how anything we have moves. Creepy, right? Also, check out the trail that it's leaving behind it. You see that? It's got like a chemtrail behind it. This audio comes from an astronaut in 1969, Frank Borman. You see all this? These are lights that astronauts have been seeing while on the moon. Buzz Aldrin, the second dude to ever land on the moon, in 1972, he reported seeing lasers hitting the moon or around the moon. And then every Apollo mission after that, which there has been 11, they've all reported seeing a light show. Kind of weird, huh? What do you think?
It literally pulled out some of my daughter's hair. Y'all, this story comes in from a listener. They live in an old apartment above an old antique shop. Now, people like to joke around about how antique shops are creepy or haunted. But after listening to this story, I'm convinced they're all probably haunted. So her and her family, they move into this apartment above the antique shop. Now, her husband, he never was a believer. He didn't buy that kind of stuff of the supernatural world. She said she, on the other hand, is a little bit in tune with that kind of stuff. But one night she's on the couch, she's fast asleep, he's in the kitchen. Now, where he's standing in the kitchen, he can see the couch she's laying on. And out of nowhere, her arm goes straight up. It's twitching a little, but it's staying up, and it looks like somebody's holding it up. He thinks she's playing with him. So he grabs out his phone and he starts recording. And as he's moving closer, she like wakes up and is startled and is like, ow, like it's hurting her. And she's thinking it's him. And he's like, no, no, girl, like I got the video footage. That was not me. That is when he stopped joking around about the supernatural stuff. But y'all, it gets worse. She has 3 kids, right? And they range from age 4 to 19. And she said none of them want to go into the storage room there, but especially her 4-year-old. She said one night they were sitting there talking about the storage room, and out of nowhere, the light just turns on. They make eye contact like, did you see that? They saw it. They both saw it. So then right after that happened, boom, the door shuts. Not just shuts, it slams shut, like with force. She said it was so hard that it felt like the apartment was shaking. But then they heard what sounded like a heavy bowling ball be thrown to the floor and start rolling across the floor. And yeah, it gets worse because this thing is starting to be violent, or at least one of these things, because at this point, who knows how many are in there or what is in there or whatever it may be, because this is getting wild. So she says that her daughter has also experienced some of her hair being pulled out of her head. What? She said they've also experienced like mimics. They hear things, they hear people call them who aren't there in voices that they know. She said they are breaking their lease. They are ready to leave. They're actually leaving next month. So like, good for them. So happy that they are able to do that. But y'all, do y'all think it's 1 spirit, 2 spirit, 3 spirit, or do you think it's something more sinister? Do you think it's connected to the antique shop or something in the house? I don't know. Drop your comments. I am sure she is going to be looking at them. And y'all, if you have any spooky, creepy, scary stories, send it to my email. It's in the bio. If you like this kind of stuff, make sure to follow along. As always, stay strange, stay blessed, and share this out.
So I'm here in front of the Chinese hospital in San Francisco in Chinatown, and I have been wondering for a long time whether this place is haunted, and I actually got some real stories from someone who used to work here. The building you see in the video is newer, but the Chinese hospital has been there for 125 years as a business. And I had asked around before if there are any ghost stories, with no luck. But coincidentally, I went to a clinic in Berkeley for something totally unrelated. I was talking to a nurse. I told her I do ghost videos and ghost tours. And then she shared with me that she used to work at the Chinese hospital. And there is a story that there was a terminal cancer patient, an old man, on the 3rd floor. And in Chinese tradition, according to her, the relatives aren't supposed to tell the person who's dying that they're going to die, because they want to keep them in good spirits and hopefully they can fight through it, or they just at least want them in good spirits until the end. But with this man, someone slipped and let him know that he was terminal. And he was so devastated that he slashed his wrist, killing himself in that room. And then she told me that ever since the man killed himself, that room stayed unusually cold. Even when they called the HVAC technicians to fix it, they couldn't fix it. It just kept staying really, really cold. And one night, when she was up alone in that room on the 3rd floor again, she heard someone tapping on a window from the outside. And there was nobody outside of that window. So she thinks that that could have been the ghost of that patient. There's also a story of people seeing an old lady wandering around the hospital. I mean, who knows how many people have died in this hospital. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot more ghost stories. So if you know of any ghost stories of the Chinese hospital, let me know. I love Chinatown ghost stories. I share them on my ghost tours in San Francisco. And again, my name is Ying. I am the producer of the Haunted Bay Paranormal series on Amazon Prime and Asian American movies. And I'm also the creator and the tour guide for the Haunted Bay Ghost Tours, where I take you to haunted places in Berkeley and San Francisco. Our link is in our bio.
Have you ever had a place from your childhood that you can't seem to let go of? But not because you love it, because it won't let you go. They call it the house on Dorsy. Allison lived there from ages 7 to 15, and her sisters call it their own personal haunting of Hill house. Welcome back to After Midnight Stories, where it's too late to be logical but too early to care. and we talk about things that people would never believe, but we believe you here. This story came to me from a fellow creator and a sweet friend, Tea After Midnight. Allison was maybe 7 or 8 years old. One of her older sisters had a habit of staying up late going on Facebook and MySpace, the keyboard clicking into the night. So when she woke up one evening to that sound, she assumed it was her sister. She didn't want to get caught out of bed, so she crept up to her door, just enough to peek. The screen was on, the keyboard was clicking, and the mouse was moving. She crept further into the doorway of the living room, and then the screen cut to blue. The mouse stopped. She froze, thinking that her sister had heard her, thinking that she was about to get in trouble. But there was no sister. The chair was empty. No one had been sitting there. Nobody had been typing. She ran back to her room, got under the covers, surrounded herself with her stuffed animals, and that's when she felt it. A heavy presence settling over her, like something had followed her down the hall. She slowed her breathing, she kept still, and she did not sleep for a long time. Allison's bedroom was in the basement, finished but eerie. No windows. Her younger sister Jocelyn's room was right beside hers, connected by a shared doorway. And Jocelyn had a habit. She loved to scare her, tugging blankets, tickling feet, popping out, giggling. So when she turned the light off one night and got into bed, facing the doorway, and saw a silhouette crawl toward the end of her bed, she wasn't scared, she was annoyed. The blanket moved. She ignored it. It moved again. "Jocelyn, stop, you're gonna scare me." Giggling, she rolled over. The blanket moved again. "I know it's you, Jocelyn, it's not funny." More giggling. She rolled over again. And then the blanket was yanked off of her. She sat up. She was done. She had had enough. She stomped through the doorway into Jocelyn's room and found her sister asleep, still breathing slow. She shook her. Nothing. She shook her harder. She pulled her eyelids open and watched her sister's eyes float the way eyes do in a deep sleep. She shook her again, hard, and tapped her face. Jocelyn woke up, tired and confused. "Huh? What is it?" "I know that you were in my room." "Who was in your room?" She told her everything. Jocelyn sat there, half asleep, completely confused. Not like she was performing confusion, but because she was genuinely confused. She had no idea what Allison was talking about. She told her sister to go back to sleep. She ran back to her room, pulled the blankets over her head, the same blankets that had just been pulled off of her, and laid there in the dark, knowing whatever had been at the end of that bed, it knew how to sound just like someone she trusted. The house on Dorsy, she lived there for 8 years. 8 years of learning which sounds were real and which ones weren't. 8 years of figuring out which silhouette was her sister and which one wasn't. Some houses don't haunt you all at once. They do it slowly. So slowly that by the time you realize what had been happening, you're already 15. And it's already been years. If you grew up in a house like this, you know where to find me.
There's a house in the middle of the woods that doesn't exist on any map, but someone's been living in it. People finding structures in the middle of nowhere that have no business being there. A group of walkers, 3 or 4 of them, regular hikers, are going through a stretch of woodland, not deep wilderness or out like that, just a large wooded area. Kind of thing you'd find all over rural areas. They're slightly off the main path because one of them thought they saw a shortcut on the map. They come through a clearing and there's a house, not a ruin, not an old collapsed building, a fucking house, single story, built from what looked like a mix of timber silver and corrugated metal and reclaimed materials. It had a door, it had windows, actual glass windows. There was a chimney of sorts made from stacked metal pipes. No fucking road anywhere near it, no path leading to it, no utility lines, no electric, no water connection, just a house in a clearing in the middle of a wood that shouldn't fucking be there. They knocked on the door, no answer, the door was unlocked. Now they probably shouldn't have gone in, but they did because humans are curious and bellends in equal measure. Inside it was furnished, a bed, proper mattress, pillows, blankets, a table with chairs, shelves with tins of food, bottles of water. There was a wood burning stove connected to the chimney, clothes hanging from a line strung across the room, a pair of boots by the door, a bowl with water in it on the table that wasn't stagnant, it was fucking clean. Someone had filled it recently. There were books on the shelf, old ones mostly, and on the wall, pinned up, there were newspaper clippings, dozens of them, all about different things, some about local events, some about national news from years ago, some recent, no obvious connection between them. They didn't stay long, something about it felt fucked up. One of the groups said it felt like whoever lived there just pops out and could be back any minute, so they left. They reported it to a local council when they got home. The council said there was no record of any structure in that area, no planning permission, no building on any map, including satellite. They said they'd look into it. One of the walkers went back about a month later, took the same route, found the same clearing. The house was still there, but this time it was different. The door was padlocked from the outside, the windows had been covered with something from the inside, and pinned to the door was a piece of paper that said, in handwritten capital letters, "Do not enter." That was it. No name, no official notice, just "do not enter." They didn't go in, they left, and as far as I know, nobody's been back since. Who's living in an house in the woods with no road, no electricity, no running water, and newspaper clippings on the wall? Who padlocked it from the outside, and who left that note? I hike a fair bit, and I tell you fucking what, I stay on marked paths. I don't look for shortcuts through the woods, because you never know what you're going to find in a clearing.
She died on the toilet. Hey there, welcome back to Pink Hair Ain't Scared. I'm Marge, your spooky drag storyteller. This is a short but true story about a sassy grandma sending her love. When I was about 15, my grandmother died. We were really close, and I took her death pretty hard. She died on the toilet. And to make light of the situation, I would joke that she went out like Elvis. Well, a few days after she died, I was on the toilet when the bathroom lights went off. Not a burned bulb. Something physically flipped the switch. As I sat there, I saw a faint blue light look as though it shot out the window. I was kind of spooked, but I welcomed all paranormal activity. When I walked out of the bathroom, my 5-year-old sister looked at me and said, "Grandma was just at the end of the bed. She told me to tell you. She said hi, and she is sorry for turning off the light." Do you have a scary story you'd like to submit? My email is down below. Hope to hear from you soon, and stay tuned for another scary story.
A few moments later.
Hey there, welcome back to Pink Hair Ain't Scared. I'm Marge, your spooky drag storyteller.
Today's story was sent to us by someone who said that we could call her Charlie, and Charlie said that she used to really enjoy exploring old and abandoned graveyards. She said that it was quiet, there was never anyone else around, it was just really nice. She said she did not do this from a paranormal perspective, she really didn't even believe in those things. She did it from a history-focused perspective, and she said when she would go into these graveyards, she actually wouldn't even take photos of the headstones, she would take actual impressions, like etchings of them. She said she did this because it made her feel like she was holding a piece of history, and then she would take those etchings, she would research these people, and she said that that would then give her a glimpse into the way of life in those time periods versus like just big historical broad spectrum coverage. When Charlie is 27 years old, she goes on a camping trip with her best friend Rachel, and while they are camping, they meet these 2 van life girls, and they end up becoming pretty close with them. They're only there for 2 more days. The van life girls are going to be there for another week, but they do end up hanging out for the 2 days that Rachel and Charlie are at this campground, and they end up kind of becoming close, and they start talking about what their interests are. Turns out van life girls are also into exploring old graveyards. Charlie is like, "Oh my gosh, me too." They ask her, "Did you see the one a few miles up the road on the way in?" Charlie says, "No, I didn't. Can you give me the location, because I'd love to check it out on my way out?" So they set her up with a location, let her know where it is and how to get there. They said they had actually stopped on the way in, but only for a few minutes because they didn't have much time. They were going to hit it on their way back out. They exchanged numbers. Charlie tells them, "I'll let you know how it is." Comes time to leave. Now, Charlie is not really into the paranormal, but her friend Rachel does believe in it. except she's not into like exploring it. She's terrified of it. So she really doesn't want to stop at this graveyard because she's just sure that it is haunted. Charlie is like, I do this all the time. I promise you, everything's going to be fine. So Rachel reluctantly agrees to go into this graveyard with Charlie. They follow the directions that the van girls had given them specifically, and yeah, there it is. Right there, they end up at this graveyard. Charlie is into it, Rachel reluctantly gets out, but they walk through this graveyard, and Charlie says that she has been in a lot of old and abandoned graveyards, but this one was in the worst shape that she has ever seen. Comparatively speaking to the other ones that she had been in, which you could tell people did frequent, she just never like ran into anybody there because they would still prop up the headstones and kind of like pull brush and just make it a little more inviting. However, this one, nobody was taking care of this place. It seemed trees had grown up everywhere. The headstones were all fallen over. It was just a mess. As they walk a little further into the woods, Charlie notices that there does look like there is one grave that has been somewhat maintained. She walks over to it, she kneels down, and in her mind, she reads the headstone, and it says Elias Boon. She says, that is not the name that was on the headstone. I made that up. But it says Elias Boon, and then below it are these weird markings. It looks like a circle with antlers coming out of it. Charlie bends down because she wants to make an impression of this headstone. It's unlike anything she's ever seen before while exploring these old graveyards. And Rachel is standing behind her. And as she's down, about to take this etching, she hears Rachel say, Charlie. Charlie stands up and looks to where Rachel is looking, and she sees an old man coming through the woods. She said that he looks to be late 80s, maybe even late 90s. He is just walking with a walking stick, kind of having a hard time getting around. Clothes look old. But Rachel's scared, and she can tell Rachel's scared because she thinks we're seeing a ghost right now, but I see this, and this is not paranormal. This is just a man walking through the woods. So she puts her hand on Rachel. She's like, it's okay, I see him too. It's not a ghost. So she says, she yells to the man, hello, sir. I am so sorry if we are trespassing. We'll get our stuff and we'll get out of here. The man is slowly walking to them through these trees, and as he gets closer, he says, did you speak the name written on the stone? Charlie says that for some reason she knows that this man is talking about the stone behind her that says the name on it with weird symbols, and she says, I did not. I just read in my head, why? Why would that matter? And she says that the old man just looks at them and tells them, shh, do not speak to him. Do not speak in front of him. Don't. At this point, Charlie's just packing her stuff up. She's going to get out of there. She's like kind of eye rolling. She's like, oh, here we go. Crazy old man. Awesome. But Rachel, super into it. She wants to know what's going on. She wants the whole story. The old man tells them, I'll tell you. I will tell you this because at this point, you're already involved because you're already here. You've already seen it. You're already involved. I'll tell you, but I will not tell you here. Let's get you back to your car or whatever it is that you came from. But yeah, no, I don't talk in front of him. They gather their things and they start to exit. Charlie once again says to the man, listen, I'm really sorry if we were trespassing. Like, I do apologize. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. The man ends up telling them that, yeah, this is, my land. I have tried to maintain the graveyard, but as you can see, I'm getting older. So I haven't really been that great with upkeep, but I've done the best that I can. Charlie says, yeah, except for that one. That one look good. The old man tells them, yeah, well, I got to keep the protections in place. So Charlie is kind of over it at this point, just kind of ready to go. She's never had any sort of paranormal experience in a graveyard. She's been going there for years. But Rachel's super into the paranormal. She wants to know what the heck is going on. Since they are far enough away from this grave, this man goes on to tell them the story of Elias Boon, the man supposedly buried underneath his headstone. He told them, legend has it that back in the 1800s, a man named Elias Boon came into the town. He kind of appeared out of nowhere. He didn't really have a backstory, no family, no distinguishing features, just kind of poof, he was there. But the people of the town really liked Elias. He was charismatic. He was very trustworthy. Everybody liked Elias. So the fact that he had no family, no backstory, no nothing, oh well, nobody really cared. He didn't make waves. He didn't hurt anybody. Elias lives in this town for 20 years, and after those 20 years, people start to notice some strange things about Elias. Mostly the fact that Elias never aged. There was never a wrinkle. He still looked exactly the same 20 years after he showed up, and people in the town were aging as they normally would, but time never seemed to touch Elias. They don't really think much of it. It's weird, but hey, good genetics, God's favorite, who knows? Until one day when an old man is passing through town and he has an encounter with Elias Boon. Except he doesn't call him Elias, he calls him by a different name. Now this isn't public, so the townspeople do see this interaction between Elias and this man who is passing through town, and this man basically tells him, I have not seen in 40 years, and yet you have not changed, you haven't aged. And you are this man. Elias very nervously tells him, I am not who you think that I am. I'm so sorry, but that's not me. And the older man ends up telling him, you walk like him. You talk like him. You look just like him. I know that you're him. Elias once again tells this older man, I am not who you think that I am. I'm sorry, but that's not me. Old man basically calls Elias out and is like, I always knew there was something off about you. But he just leaves it at that and leaves. Now, this interaction, coupled with the fact that the townspeople are not seeing time take any toll on Elias, start to become very distrustful of him. No matter his charisma, no matter how kind he was, no matter how trustworthy he seemed. A town that used to love Elias, almost as if it was magnetic and magic, turned on him. They weren't cruel, they didn't kick him out, they just distanced themselves. They began to withhold this love and this trust and this admiration that they had once given Elias. After the townspeople do this, they begin to notice that Elias doesn't age, but he begins to fade. He becomes very thin. His skin doesn't wrinkle and it doesn't crack. It just becomes gray, like the color had been drained out of it. As the townspeople see this, they actually begin to feel bad because they're thinking, this is just a mortal man and now he's sick and now we have treated him so terribly. And they are about to forgive Elias, welcome him back into the fold, give him their trust and their admiration and all of that back once he, they see that, okay, he's just a normal guy. Until there is a girl in the town who had gone missing, and reports stated that the last person she was seen alive with was Elias Boon. Townspeople go to Elias Boon, who they had just seen a couple days prior in town, who had looked terrible, and turns out he's completely back to normal. He's put the weight back on, his skin is colored again. After seeing this, the townspeople automatically blame Elias for this girl's unaliving or disappearance, thinking that somehow Elias has this magic that allows him to feed off of people in one way or the other, and if he can't get it through love and admiration, he'll just get it some other way. This basically turns into a witch hunt, okay? It is said that after the people in the town turn on Elias, Elias becomes very angry and ends up just letting it all out. He tells them, I am the thing that you fear. There is nothing that you can do to me. I will always be here. I have always been here. Honestly, sounds awful. And in the town ends up telling Elias, I may not be able to unalive you or do anything to you, but I can trap you. So apparently the townspeople wrap Elias in chains, throw him in a coffin, bury him as deep as they can, mark his grave with this headstone, and then put his name and some protective markings. Years following Elias being put in this coffin and buried and wrapped in chains, people would visit his grave, mostly as generations went on and the story became muddied and people just looked at it as a legend or something that wasn't real. Now, this wasn't long after his death, but it wasn't hundreds of years. But they would visit his grave, they would speak his name, they would talk to him, and it was said that they would hear voices, hear things moving beneath the ground. And after they would visit the grave, they would feel drained as if their energy had been taken from them. Finally concluded that Elias is still alive down there, obviously, and when people speak his name or come to his grave, he is feeding off of their energy. He's feeding off of anything that they will give him until he is strong enough to break those bonds and escape from where he is. The old man tells Charlie and Rachel, you cannot speak his name, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about this place, you can't tell people to come here. Because if Elias gets out, I don't know. After this man tells him the story, Charlie, who says she's never had a paranormal experience in her life, does start to hear whispers inside of that graveyard. We get back to their car, the old man looks at them one last time and just says, just remember, if you do talk about this place, don't say his name. Charlie said she got in her car and she got out of there as fast as she possibly could. In the email, Charlie wrote that she doesn't know if there was something paranormal to this, if it's just a local legend to keep away outsiders. The energy of that place and the whispers that she heard, it just felt nefarious and it's not something that she wants to play with. She doesn't know what or who Elias Boon was, but she don't want him coming back.
So this story is about a girl named Julia, and she's always been a smart kid. She was clever, and she learned pretty early on that just because somebody is grown up doesn't mean that they're all powerful and all-knowing. The first time she realized this was when she got scared. She had heard a noise coming from either underneath her bed or somewhere in her closet, so she ran down to her parents' room, basically screaming like, Mommy, Daddy, there's something in my room. So her parents are waking up, basically being like, what are you talking about? What's happening? She said, there's a monster in my room. Now, she expected them to basically comfort her or kind of just roll their eyes and send her back to bed. But they didn't. They ran to her room and they checked everywhere. They looked under the bed, they checked inside the closet, they made sure the windows were locked. They checked everything and everywhere in that bedroom. Now, Julia caught on pretty quickly. She realized that they were actually taking her fears seriously. They were showing their little girl, basically, that she was loved and safe. They had probably read about it in a book somewhere. But the lesson that Julia learned that night is that she also had power. So this became a nightly thing for her. She would wake up screaming and crying, run to her mom and dad's room, and basically have them come and check her room. As they would be checking, Julia would be hiding her grin behind her tears, and her parents never once complained about having to get up in the middle of the night. But one night, she couldn't stand it any longer. Her dad had fallen basically on his butt when he was checking inside of a light fixture, as if a monster could fit up there. So while Julia's laughing, the dad asks, like, what's so funny? And she says, you always believe me. Now, her dad was not angry. All he did was look over at her mom. He looks over at Julia, and with a serious tone, he says, once, just once, we didn't believe your brother. And Julia, who was an only child, did not sleep very well that night. That little girl is going to be a psychopath one day. An only child psychopath, but a psychopath nonetheless. Anyways, thank you for listening to today's story on Explore Paranormal. As always, I am Jason. Go ahead and throw a heart on the video if you guys liked it. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments. And go ahead and give me a follow because I tell stories like this all the time. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.
So listen to me.
Story time again. So when I used to first start trying to do psychic work on a bit more of a broader spectrum than not just family and friends, I used to get invited to go to events where other fantastic mediums would take to the stage, and at the end you'd get the opportunity to have little private readings, little mini readings with other psychics at tables. And this is what I used to do, and it was great practice. So I have quite a lot of stories from this time. One of these being a gentleman that I was really drawn to in the crowd. And as the main psychic was on her stage and doing her fantastic thing, I kept saying to a friend of mine who was also doing mini psychics, there was quite a few of us psychic ladies there and gentlemen, and I kept saying to her, I really want to talk to this guy in this yellow jumper, but I don't know why. And she's going, well, you need to go and talk to him because you're obviously being drawn to him for a reason. So back then I'm a proper fletchling, I'm nervous and I'm not too sure. And so man handles me up to this gentleman and goes, well, she wants to talk to you. So in the spotlight I've said, well, deer in the headlights more like, I've said to him, have you booked in for a mini reading after the show? And he said, no, but my wife has. So I said to him, would you come and talk to me when I've got X amount booked? After I've done these, before I pack up, would you come and talk to me? Like, just a conversation. It's not a reading, you haven't got to go pay the lady or anything, just come and chat to me. So he was like, yeah, all right then. So the evening rolls around and he comes and sits next to me and he says, well, you know, what is it you wanted to say? And I said to him, to be honest, I don't know. There's just something about you and I can't quite put my finger on it. I need to talk to you. So it became apparent in this reading that I brought forward, or was able to identify for him, a very close friend that had passed away. And he was talking about some projects he had in his house. And I said to this gentleman that he's shown me that you were doing car work in your front garden and your back garden, but you're like restoring old cars, like old Volkswagen camper vans, these type of old cars, Beetles and things. And there's a joke about it being your treasure and her rubbish, because his wife was there and that caused a giggle. But I said that you've stopped doing what you want to do because he's not there to help you no more, this friend of yours. And I described this leather jacket this gentleman was wearing, and I described some tattoos, and I said, he wants you to keep going, you need to get back into it, because this is keeping his memory alive, this is what's good for you. And he was so shocked about the details of, you know, his house that I'd said about, and the cars and the gentleman that passed away. And it was in that moment I realised that when I am drawn to these people, it's such for an important reason. Now don't get me wrong, sometimes I've had this and the setting isn't appropriate, like in Tesco's or walking around Morrison's, and I wouldn't just go up to random strangers and go, oh, I feel like I need to talk to you, because that's not how this works. And also it's a massive invasion of privacy. But I have often been asked if I feel drawn to just random strangers, and the answer is yes. And if I do end up sitting down and chatting to them, sometimes it's for a very good reason.
White lady apparitions. Scratch that, I meant lady in white apparitions. These ghosts, spirits, entities may appear in your room. As you're watching this video, in your peripheral vision, you might see a lady in white. It's standing in your corner, it's standing in your hallway, underneath your bed, poking out. You just never know. Now, there's many different stories about these apparitions throughout history, different cultures. We call it La Llorona, but people here in the US call it the lady in white. They're all different. Now, you got different names for them down in El Salvador. The little Guates, they got a different version of it, I think, as well. Everybody got a different version of it. Ultimately, it's just a lady in white, usually with the hair down. Some people say that she might even have a horse, like a head of a horse. But ultimately, it's always the same story. You might be outside, throwing out the trash, taking your dog out to potty, and there she is. She just appears. You might be in your room, in your living room, and there she is. She just appears, she'll walk by. One of the stories that I know is true, that I know is real, is my brother and his friends. My brother and his friends were out one night. They were walking through the woods in Mexico. Not really the woods, but they're walking by the woods in Mexico, in Michoacan. Next thing you know, they see a lady in white floating through the forest, through like the wooded area, literally floating with her hair down, you know, black hair. So I know it's real. They all saw it. They were all crying like little bitches. No doubt. They did not lie about that. So yeah, man, if you see her tonight, I don't really know, bro. You know, you might see her, you might not. You'll have a good night.
Tell me that this next video was filmed in the Appalachian Mountains without telling me it was filmed in the Appalachian Mountains. And why do I say that? Because there was a contractor that was installing a fence during the daytime and looked over into the bushes where he was putting the fence and noticed a woman staring at him. You heard what I said. She was staring at him through the bushes. He then went to get a closer look, and what he saw scared the living daylights out of him. Take a look at this video for yourself. Listen.
Look, dude, she couldn't find her way over there.
Watch the glitch right there. Look at that. Unbelievable.
You see her?
Right there.
That face. Oh my God. It's right there staring at me.
What is that?
Dude, how fucking scary is that?
I froze the video and enhanced it as best as I could for clarity. Do you see the individual or whatever that thing is right there? Do you see it now? No? How about right now? Take a look at that face. What in the world is that was staring at him and moving around? I'll play the video one more time and keep an eye on the glitch in the background as well.
Look, dude, she couldn't find her way over there, so now she's over here.
Just unbelievable. I still don't know what the heck that is that was looking at him. Do you? And like many of you, I've heard the horror stories of what goes on at night in the Appalachian Mountains. So my question to you is, why do people still live there? Number one. And number two, if you were that contractor, would you keep doing the job or just hightail it the hell out of there and call it a day? Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. And as always, I'd love to hear from you.
Right now, people are saying this is a real video from the Appalachian Mountains. And I've already warned you, never go there. The Appalachians are known as one of the most haunted places in the world. The locals even have their own survival rules. For example, if you hear whistling while you're alone, pretend you didn't hear it. When the sun starts to set, shut every window and every shutter, not just so you don't see what's outside, but so whatever's outside can't see you. If you hear someone calling your name, whispering, or asking for help, don't react. Don't answer. Don't even turn your head. And if you're ever foolish enough to go out at night, never step into the forest. There's a very real chance you won't come back. Whatever lives in the Appalachian woods, you do not want to meet it. Locals say the moment you acknowledge them, the moment you give them attention, you invite them into your life. And the smartest thing you can do is ignore them completely, even if you're terrified. On paper, the Appalachians are just a mountain range, but the nature there does not behave like the rest of this world. Subscribe to me, because we might never meet again. Good luck.